Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today, we will be telling you why it's time to jump off the retail discounting roller coaster. And in this webinar, we will discuss how retailers can abandon the highs and lows of the ever-fluctuating world of discounts and to find a smoother alternative. I'm Ali Thiam, the editor of Power Retail, and as always, it is a pleasure to have everyone here today. Again, we have a fantastic lineup of panelists in store for you today, but before I introduce them, I have a quick bit of housekeeping. So if you have any questions for our panelists today, be sure to pop them in the questions tab on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the session. We will also be completing a couple of polls in today's session, so keep an eye out for those throughout the webinar. So before we jump in, I would like to take a couple of minutes to introduce our wonderful panelists. Today we have Sarah Kelly, the Marketing Director of Partner Eyes. Sarah specialises in educating APAC marketers about the value of partnerships. And over the last 10 years, Sarah has been supporting B2B and B2C marketing teams across a variety of industries. She's lived in 3 countries so far, so enjoy trying to figure out where her accent is from. I mean, I'm picking up Welsh, but that could be just me. And we're also very excited to introduce Annabelle Gray, the Associate Director at Silverbean. So Annabelle heads up Silverbean APAC, which is an affiliate and partnership marketing specialist service agency. Silverbean has launched into the APAC region only 2 years ago, but already they have made a huge impact on the landscape with its value-based approach to partnerships. So it's a pleasure to have you both here today.
Thank you, pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Ali.
This is going to be an absolutely info-packed webinar where we will discuss again the highs and lows of last year, some valuable consumer insights, trends from partnership landscapes, and strategies retailers can use for a smooth ride. So without further ado, let's jump right in, shall we? So first, we're going to start off with a poll. So everyone could take a second to complete the following question. Let's just launch it. Here we go. Which discounting tactic have you utilized the most in the last 12 months? So we will wait for just about a minute, and then we will look through the answers. I reckon we'll give it another 7 seconds. Okay, and now I'm going to close the poll to make sure everyone gets their answers in. Okay, so let's have a look at the results, shall we?
Very interesting.
It is, and it kind of aligns with what we've been seeing across over the year, the use of the site-wide discounts. So we've got some information which we'll share shortly in terms of different approaches outside of the site-wide, but yeah, interesting to see.
Yeah, good to see people like still looking at specific categories or, you know, the basket stretch pieces too. I'm hoping we can change some minds of the 20% who stopped altogether. We'll see by the end of the session.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of all of this data, let's jump right in. So Annabelle, did you want to take it away?
Excellent. Thanks, Ali. So before we get into the main content, we'll do a brief recap on the roller coaster ride that was 2020. So 2020 was unofficially the year that broke the internet, as we saw a mass migration of consumers going from physical stores to online. So whilst this was already a trend which we were seeing, Corona greatly accelerated this movement. According to IBM's retail index, this movement of peak consumers was accelerated by roughly around about 5 years. Last year was also the year of buzzwords, one of which was pivoting. And last year, retailers had to adapt. Those who could shifted their focus to online, and those who couldn't sadly struggled, and many of those didn't survive the harshest conditions of lockdown. The closures of stores also brought some really unique challenges for bricks and mortar retailers. They had faced new pressures to recoup lost profits, and also pressures to shift surplus inventory. So the combination of these two factors resulted in a frenzy of online discounting to the level which we've never seen before. There was then a chain reaction of this as pure play retailers then joined forces and jumped on the discounting roller coaster with a similar level of activity to compete. Now, we're not saying that discounting is bad, quite the opposite. It is a legitimate tactic and it has a time and a place. But what was really different about last year is the level and the frequency of discounting which we saw. And then looking specifically at the Australian digital landscape. So just onto the next slide, Addie. Thanks. So Australia has always been viewed as less mature than other global markets from the digital lens. But this year, so 2021, is the year that changes that, as retailers simply cannot afford to overlook their online offering anymore. As we saw, consumers were driven online by the pandemic, but experience and the convenience which they found there has seen them stick. As we begin to return to normal, and I know that it's anything but normal at the minute, but as close as we can get to it, online shopping, online demand hasn't dropped off to anywhere near pre-COVID levels. While it isn't at peak, it hasn't got down to what we were seeing before. So already online shopping is up like 44% year on year, looking at January. So an Australia Post report found that over 1 million new shoppers were driven online during COVID, and more importantly, 2/3 of them are still shopping online. 73% of Australian households are now shopping online. So those e-commerce gates have been opened to a whole new audience and a really valuable one to engage with. The Australian Post report also found that these shoppers are shopping more frequently, 3 times a week, which has also been supported by other retailers who've reported that brands or consumers who are new online shoppers were spending higher average order values and also shopping more often. However, with economic uncertainty at play and with the increasing savviness of consumers, they are focused on value and they want to ensure that they're getting the biggest bang back for their buck.
1 million new shoppers is pretty impressive. But I think we wanted to take a look at, where we are actually spending. This was a graph from the latest Westpac Red Book, and it really did show that, Australia is bouncing back when it comes to spending. We did see a bit of a dip there at the end of 2020 with that Sydney COVID cluster, but I think overall the sentiment is that it's really positive, and they're expecting pre-COVID spending to come back by about mid-2021. What is interesting though is where are we spending the money? So, Annabelle said there's 73% of people are shopping online. Just onto the next slide for me, Ali. And so this slide here is from McKinsey, and it's really showing that basically across the board, we're increasing where we're spending online. Now, some categories are performing better than others, footwear and apparel naturally, but I think it's a real positive to see that Australians are spending online and that behavior is expected to continue. So why is that? Really, I think it's because, consumer sentiment, it's strong. So the next is another Westpac one. And it is definitely showing that, sentiment is choppy. I mean, this goes back 30 years, but really it is showing that we've been through a bit of a tumultuous time. But what is the real positive here is that sentiment is on the increase, and it's actually higher now in Australia than it was pre-COVID. However, we have been a bit up and down, and shoppers are aware of that. So the next graph that we've got here is really kind of looking at the shopping behavior and how that's changed because of that choppiness. So what you can see, just on the next slide, there we go, thank you, are that Australian shoppers are really looking for ways to save money. I mean, 45% strongly agreed, 48% agreed, like that's a huge amount of people looking to save, looking for value, and certainly changing the way that they do behave online.
Excellent. So what we can see here is some data which has been pulled from the Partnerize platform. So this shows partner activity over the last, over a 12-week period. And the reason we've got this is it's important to give insights into the performance of different partner types outside of discounting. One huge call out here is the huge increase in content partnerships. So consumers are demanding and they want to understand and want to research every single purchase, no matter how small. And with more time spent at home, this is a behaviour which we've seen exaggerated even further. Including influencers, PartnerEyes saw a 37% increase in content partner signups in just 12 weeks. Now, to put that into perspective, this is one of the largest increases in signups from any partner type, and it signals the willingness for both consumers and brands to engage with this sort of partner category. We've also seen some fantastic performance from loyalty partners with a 111% increase in revenue from this partner type. When we're talking about loyalty partners here, it doesn't include cashback sites, but rather those partners who provide value back to their consumers in another way. So this could be card linked or employee benefit partners. And another key call out here, our final huge call out, is the growth in the channel across APAC as a region. With an average revenue increase of 65%, it demonstrates that partnerships are really being embraced across the region as a whole.
Just absolutely fascinating. And before we start discussing strategies, we do have another poll for our audience. So same as before, if everyone could take a couple of seconds out to complete the poll, which I'm just about to launch. How did you work with vouchers and coupons in 2020? So again, we'll give it about 35 seconds. So if everyone could put in their responses, and then we'll go through the results. Well, we've got some very interesting numbers coming up. I think you guys will be excited to see.
Yeah. The anticipation.
All right, we'll give it another 5 more seconds. Everyone can get their answers in. Okay, and the poll is officially closed. So let's share these results. There we go.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that speaks.
Oh no, please.
That speaks to some of the points that we will bring up later in terms of diversification across the partner mix. So a really nice way to kind of address how you're working with voucher and coupons, where they have an important role, is also look at diversifying your reach outside of that.
Yeah, even the, work small or reduce, like neither is the best approach. It's certainly understanding how you're working with them, and more importantly. So yeah, I think we'll have some very strong tips for you in the next section.
Well, I actually personally can't wait to hear them. So speaking of, let's jump right into the strategies. And Sarah, let's jump in with you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we wanted to, that's why we're all here today, right? We wanted to learn some strategies, some tips, secrets to success for really getting discounting right. And Annabelle mentioned this earlier, and I'd really like to reiterate it, that today's presentation is in no way saying stop discounting. I actually think as a marketer, it's one of your strongest promotional tools, but it's when you use it correctly. It's about, looking at it in a more strategic way, aligning it with, your wider business, and really making the most of it, because it can be really powerful. So today we've got 6 key strategies that we are going to present. A few considerations that we did want to go through. So I guess to start with, it's probably worth saying what actually is the discounting roller coaster. And for me, it's really about being reactive. So at the moment, we had some real highs and some real lows, as Annabelle showed earlier. And I think that the way retailers in Australia have responded is really like, oh gosh, things aren't as good, let's chuck a 40% off site-wide. Or, oh, things are great, let's just stop working with coupon partners altogether. So it's really about stepping off that up and down. And sorry that I just did a little wave there. And it's about, actually having a longer term, more sustainable model, which if it was a roller coaster would probably be quite dull, but for your business, a much smarter approach. At the end of the day, we're going to give you some tips that kind of show you about how to take that smarter approach, both with discounting in general and working with discounting partners. But at the end of the day, it is all about balance. So we hope you find the next 6 strategies really useful.
So starting at the beginning is looking at your definition or redefining what success looks like for you. Before I get into this, I want to share an example which I saw at a Partnerized webinar a few months ago with one of their clients called M&M Clothing, who are based in Europe. Now, M&M are a reseller of discount label brands, but they wanted to review their approach to discounting and remove overlay discounts and also the offer of free postage and packaging. So it took a while for them to retrain their customers. About a year for that behaviour, for customers to get used to and not expect that discount to be made available from them. But after that year's journey, M&M were able to review the data, and they were able to see that not only had average order value increased, but had improved the profitability and the margin of the company. So one of their key factors for success was having that wider business buy-in was essential, because without that, with the short-term failures, short-term loss, which was while they were retraining their customers, it could have been deemed a failure at the early stages. However, they took courage and strength to actually see that strategy through to the end. To bring this around for other retailers considering a similar transition, we recommend approaching your business or your discounting strategy and reviewing what your wider business objectives are, and get buy-in from across the business. What are your key business objectives? Are you focused primarily on margin, or is it retention, or is it revenue? There are many ways to structure a promotional strategy. Blanket discounts store-wide, which we saw quite commonly utilised, whilst they're great for consumers, don't drive maximum value for the brands. Once you've identified what your overarching objectives are, review your promotional strategy and you can adapt it to suit accordingly. For example, if you want to drive up AOV, you can look at a stretch and save strategy to support that. Or if your focus is retention, you can look at rewarding subsequent behaviours instead of that first one to really encourage that consumer loyalty. Depending on how aggressive you've been with your promotions, it can take a while to retrain your customers and reset those expectations. If they've been used to a discount and they never buy at full price, it will take time and it will take patience for them to understand that those discounts aren't going to be so readily available. In the instance of M&M, it took them a year. So it does take a lot of strength and that wider business support to buy into a long-term strategy like this. But as with M&M, if you ride out the dips, it will leave you in a much stronger position. And to Sarah's point, a much safer but a rather boring roller coaster ride.
I think, your goals are so important. Like every strategy that we're going to present today, is always about coming back to this first one. And if you don't understand what success is and how you're actually measuring it, you're never going to be able to fully undertake the rest of the strategy. So absolutely, before you do anything else, you should be taking Annabelle's advice there and redefining the success. It does lead us into strategy 2, which is diversifying your discounts. So as we said earlier, we are not telling you to stop discounting. We're encouraging it in a really positive way. So there are certainly options. We did see earlier from that McKinsey study that consumers are looking for value. So how do you provide that value without, as we said, just offering, a 40% off site-wide? Firstly, it's about going back to strategy 1. What are your goals? So are you trying to achieve a higher AOV, a basket size? Are you trying to promote specific categories that are higher margin? Are you trying to move stock or distressed inventory? Whatever it is, understanding those goals means you can then align your discounts to suit. One of the key areas that comes into this is certainly around understanding the profitability and ROI, so that you can then ensure your discounts are going to the highest margin and highest sort of return products. One of my favorite Australian brands or retailers who does discounting really well and I think has a really diverse approach is the Iconic. I'm sure we've all shopped there, but they do offer a lot of discounts, and as someone who's spent far too much of her salary there, I can attest. But really, you don't really see them doing the blanket discounts or kind of, you know, this and everything. They're always very specific. So they do a lot of discounts on specific categories or specific products. They do the stretch and saves that Annabelle mentioned before when they're trying to get you to hit a basket size, but you'll very rarely actually see them do a blanket discount approach. And I think that's a prime example of always relaying it back to what you're trying to achieve. The other thing I'd say when you're diversifying is, you know, diversifying your discounts also means diversifying your discounting partners. So one of the partners, Coupon Nation here that we've got on screen, they're part of Global Savings Group. They actually have a really cool product called Dynamic Coupons. So you can work with them to understand the data that's in your shopper's basket. And then you can create a completely bespoke offer to try and get that shopper to do more, depending on what you want them to do, whether that's add another item in, hit a certain basket size. But really, I think, you know, I know I said it and I'm going to say it again, but coming back to those goals will allow you to diversify your discounts in the most successful way.
And on the subject of diversification, another way to diversify is through diversifying your partner mix. Now, having a diverse partner mix is generally regarded as the sign of having a healthy program. So a diverse mix is one which isn't overly reliant on one specific publisher or one specific publisher type. Now, there are lots of different options on how you can diversify your mix, and it can be quite challenging to scale that out. In addition to that, time is our most valuable resource. So while there are lots of options available, we have to be very selective on which partnership types are the ones that we need to focus on next. We recommend using a value effort objective model when approaching these. So what that means is if there's a partner type that's going to drive you really high value, but requires low effort for you to optimize, that would be the low hanging fruit, and that would be where you should focus your efforts first. Generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, we tend to see that aligned with the customer journey. So for example, while those content partnerships will be really valuable and really desirable for the business, the effort required to optimize those is actually quite considerable. So there may be some partnership types earlier in the funnel which are worth optimizing first before you focus on those high touch strategies. Also, be creative when you consider new partner types. There are a lot of different potential partners that you can work with. I've included a few on the screen there, such as aggregators who work based on your product feed. So they provide a function in the middle of the customer journey at the consideration phase. A consumer knows that they want to buy something, but they don't know where they want to buy it from. So by working with these partners, you're available or able to be included at that stage. Other ones could be CSS partners, which are really popular in Europe, and we're seeing them growing in popularity over here. CSS partners are ones who will again work with you on a feed basis, but they'll appear in Google shopping results. So you can then combine that with your search strategy. Another one which I think is really exciting is offline partnerships. So partnerships don't need to be online. Anything that can be tracked can be a partnership. So depending on which technology you're working with, you can embed your affiliate links into a QR code. And now that everyone's very familiar with how to use QR codes, it really opens up the opportunity of offline partnerships greatly. The main thing is be creative. As I said, anything that you can track can be a partnership. So view it with limitations and test and find which ones are the best for you.
Well, I love that as well. It's so true. Like anything you can track is a partnership. It's what makes me love working in this channel. Yeah. So strategy 4, utilizing your wider marketing and insights teams. I personally think a really successful affiliate or partnership team really closely aligns with not only wider marketing teams, but the wider business. So there are 3 key teams we've identified here that you can work more closely with to improve your discounting approach. The first one is your overall marketing team. They generally more across upcoming events, key shopping days, and just what's going on in the business. You know, we've got the example here of Afterpay Day, which we had recently. By aligning what your approach is with theirs, you're more likely to tailor sort of your discounting across the customer journey rather than almost conflicting with each other. Your second one is your merchandise team, or for some businesses, your product team. And this is really where that profitability piece comes in. So you want to work with that team to understand which categories are higher margin, which are lower, and also which categories are performing well and which ones aren't. You know, your absolute sweet spot are going to be those categories that, you know, perform well and have a high margin, but the categories that perform not as well but have a high margin, that's a great gap for discounting. So working with those teams will just help you kind of identify the easiest areas to start with that still make the most sense for the business. Finally, it's your insights team. You know, discounting is a strong promotional arm, but you need to show the value of it. So make sure that you're working with that team to really show what your campaigns are doing, what they're achieving, and just to make sure that ultimately for the wider business, you are adding value and you're all aligned and moving in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Sarah's point there, talking on the importance of working with internal teams, it's a strategy we rolled out with one of our clients, MJ Bale. Now, during lockdown, as with lots of retailers here, they faced some challenges with the closure of stores, and they had some inventory which they wanted to shift online, but they didn't want to resort to discounting these lines. So we worked with the wider teams, we worked with the merchandise team and with the partnerized team to identify what the SKUs were, how we could upload those into the technology, and to create a strategy which incentivized partners to promote these lines as opposed to incentivizing consumers to purchase them. The results with this were fantastic, and we saw a 700% increase in sales on those SKUs alone without having to resort to discounting. So when you bring in the wider team and you look at what is the wider business needs, you can be really creative with how you use partnerships to fulfill those. And then another strategy which we use quite commonly is to leverage affiliate to support your search strategy. So supporting across SEO and paid. It's something which isn't commonly done over here, but when done correctly, it can be incredibly powerful and increase your visibility across the SERPs on the terms that you really want to win on. When you're working with organic partners in this way, there's a few considerations, and you really need to understand the competition within each of the search terms, the domain authority, and other SEO ranking factors, as all of those will influence the publisher types that you can work with and also the keywords which you can leverage. Likewise, if you're working with paid search partners, having clear parameters and strong communication to ensure that your paid partners always appear below you and don't affect your CPC. Now, there are two tiers to a search domination strategy. Increasing your coverage on your must-win premium keywords. So your must-win keywords are ones which are high volume, high converting, but generic keywords, very competitive, but ones that you must win on. And then the other element is having a supporting long tail strategy. By having both of these, it ensures that you've got much more visibility across the SERPs. We applied this approach of utilising both tiers to one of our clients, Ambassador Theatre Group, who are a huge international theatre company. By applying both elements of this strategy, we increased content contribution on the programme from 7% to 73%, which is an incredible uplift. So it just demonstrates if you use this lens, it can really open up the potential power of partnerships. And if we look at this on the retail sector, it opens up some really highly competitive but potentially very valuable opportunities, such as top 10 winter jackets or best mattresses reviews. Whichever are the terms that you need to win on, you're able to compete in. By identifying those terms and dominating the SERPs, what you're actually doing is increasing the probability of a potential consumer going to your site rather than going to one of your competitors.
I love it. And last but certainly not least, the hot topic of the day in Australia at the moment, brand partnerships. So Annabelle touched on earlier about diversifying your partnerships. And one of the most exciting prototypes is certainly brand partnerships. There are definitely considerations when you're doing brand partnerships, and you can do those either with a discounting approach or without. So one of my favorite examples is from SurfStitch. Pre-COVID, they did a really exciting partnership with Hawaiian Airlines. So they set their goals, what they wanted to achieve, and then they actually ran a two-part partnership. So the first part, they really wanted to increase the number of people in their database. So they ran a competition together. That was their only incentive, no discounting, and it was really around just awareness of the brands and getting more people into that database. Then once they had achieved that, they ran the second part, which was where when you booked a flight to Hawaii, which I'm sure we would all very much like to do right now, you could then get a unique discount for SurfStitch, and you could use that to buy your swimwear or whatever you want to wear on holiday. So it definitely sort of shows you that you can have different approaches, and if you incorporate discounting, it can be powerful, but it's also powerful with that. It's whatever you prefer to do. I think the thing to consider is really just being creative. Like, there are no barriers with a brand partnership. We've got on screen there the Binge and the Iconic partnership. I think that was probably the most talked about brand partnership of 2020. I personally loved it, and that was not centered around a discount. So there's definitely options, and the sky is the limit.
Absolutely. And with brand partnerships, as it's something that we firmly believe in as a channel, at Silverbeam, we've recently launched our brand partner network. So our brand partner network is free for brands to register, and you can register, and once you're approved, you'll have access to see other companies that are receptive to brand partnerships, where they're based and what verticals they operate in. And what we'll do then is we're essentially like the Tinder of brand partnerships. If you would like to partner with a brand and they would like to partner with you, what we'll do is we'll just introduce you both, so then you're able to continue that conversation independently and hopefully create something just as which will be the next Binge and Iconic partnership next year.
Oh, fantastic. Look, I think before we jump into Q&A, and I'm sure Ali's hoping that we hurry up, before we jump in, I just want to, I guess, give some final thoughts and say, we do hope that you found those strategies helpful. There's a whole array of conversations you can have. So we popped both mine and Annabelle's emails on the screen there. Please do reach out if you would like to know more. We all heard Annabelle say that MJ Bell increased 700%, which I took as work with Partnerize and Silverbeam, and you can get that too. So please do email us if you do want to discuss more. But if not, I'll hand over to Ali and we'll jump into Q&A.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I think that the world of partnerships is sort of like this little Narnia world, isn't it? I love it. You just want to open the door and see all of the amazing things that it has to offer. So I really enjoyed this webinar. And again, before we finish up, we do have a couple of questions based on some of the data provided by Power Retail. So the first one I'm going to throw over to Annabelle. So consumer research from Power Retail shows that 76% of shoppers had used a loyalty program to receive a discount in the last 3 months. Do you think that shoppers are being deterred from purchasing if a discount isn't offered? And how can retailers overcome this?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a few factors, like how have you been training your consumers previously, for example? Have they been trained to expect discounts? As we showed earlier, if they have, it's going to take a little while to wean them off from that expectation. And also coming back to some of the research that Sarah shared, consumers want to get value back from their purchase. They want to get something back from it. And value is a bit of an ambiguous term, as value could be cashback, it could be a member's benefit, but it could also be something that someone gets from purchasing from a brand. For example, it could be if they're very ethical or very green in their approach, the value that someone gets from buying from them isn't an actual tangible asset, but it's something that aligns with their approach and their belief system. So there are lots of different ways which brands can deliver value to consumers, but it's making sure that understanding what your audience want to get back and that some value is being provided over as part of that transaction as well.
Absolutely. And Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think what you said is very true. Like I mean, it's always unique to you as well. It's what you're trying to achieve, but I think loyalty is always going to be a really powerful thing. So I think it's remembering that loyalty doesn't always have to be a discount. There are definitely other ways that you can provide loyalty to customers to keep them coming back.
Absolutely. And Sarah, I've got a question for you as well. So 71% of Australian consumers said that their top priority when ordering online is free delivery. So what is the best approach to this without retailers always taking the cost hit themselves? Because it is a very popular option and a top priority for shoppers.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest reason for cart abandonment. Is when someone has to pay. And it's funny, isn't it? You know, I've got a $200 basket, but if you make me pay $15 for delivery, God forbid, it's I mean, we've all done it. I do it. It's I don't think that it's something that we just have to get rid of. I think, you know, there are two sort of approaches. And the first one is, you know, you can really use it as a tool to get your customer to do more. So what I think a lot of retailers do that's quite successful is, you know, setting a certain basket size before you get free delivery. You could also, you know, do that through tiers. If someone spends X, they get half price delivery, or Y, they get free delivery. If you want to try and really stretch it out. But I think the other thing to remember is that, like, people, and they said that in the McKinsey survey, people are looking for value. Now, value is not always a discount or free delivery. Value can be the experience. So if you're shopping with a retailer and yes, you just paid, you know, $9.99 for delivery, but the item comes the next day, or the item comes in great packaging, and it's, you know, I love Adore Beauty, how they always give you a Tim Tam. But, like, you know, those little experiences count and people remember them. And so they're often more likely to pay for delivery if there's that perceived value. I think that there's certainly options. We don't have to, as much as consumers would love free delivery all the time, there's definitely options to approach it.
Absolutely. And I agree. I love those Tim Tams from Adore Beauty. They're such a nice little treat.
I know.
We have extra questions from the audience. So as partners receive a commission on sales, combining this with a discount for customers means that there is a double hit on margin. What is your advice to address this?
Yeah, there's a few different ways that you can approach that. First of all, monitoring which coupons and discounts you have got in the market, and so keeping an eye on that and see how that aligns with your whatever discounts or offers that you're running on the site. You can also, depending on which platform you're using, you can look at restricting coupon uses so that partners, you're not paying commission on coupons which aren't supposed to be used in the partner channel. So by having that restriction, you're ensuring that only discounts which you've considered that additional commission incentive on top of are allowed to be used within the partnership channel, and ones that don't won't receive any commission on that side. So there's a few ways that you can use the technology to support as well there. But taking a wider view on what you're offering and who you're offering it to is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have anything to add?
No, I was just going to say, like, it's interesting because, like, sometimes we think of that as such a basic aspect that you shouldn't be paying out, you know, your partners and obviously offering a discount, but it's not always the case. I mean, I even think about a lot of the time when you're paying commissions to partners, the types of things you pay on as a retailer that you know don't necessarily need to, like paying on shipping costs or returns. So it's definitely things we need to consider more of. It only helps us with the bottom line in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree. We have a question from Vivian. So you've mentioned a few times about diversifying your types of partners. Is there a set approach here? And also, how do you know what a good balance actually is?
I'm happy to take this one. I think no, there's not a set approach. Like, as much as there could be a magical formula, there isn't. I think it really depends on your business and what you're trying to achieve. That said, like, you can definitely, you know, work with, if you're in the partner channel, work with someone like Silverbean or your customer success team to kind of understand where you need those partners to be. So I definitely think having a good balance of across the funnel is important, making sure you've got partners at all levels to achieve different things, whether that's awareness or actually getting people to convert. You know, having partners that are, you know, in the comparison stage, making sure that you're across the buyer journey with your partners, I think is a great way to diversify. Annabelle, I'm sure you've probably got something to add to that. I know this is a bit of your specialty as well.
No, I very much agreeing with what you said in terms of there isn't a one size fits all. It's not a set approach. It's working out. Look at your data, work out who your most valuable partner types are, and then amplify those. So very much looking at where your efforts can have the highest impact, and focusing on those ones first of all, and then building gradually from there.
Fantastic. 1 second, sorry, we've got so many questions coming in. This is brilliant. So we do have actually time for one more question. This is from Sung Ho. So how do you suggest that merchants choose and evaluate exclusive discount partners?
I think, do you want to go, Sarah? You go.
No, please.
Working with discount partners, it's all about trust and transparency, and making sure that they align with your offer and also with your brand. So having those really close communication channels is important to ensure that the offers are being displayed properly to consumers, that they're correct, they're accurate, and it's supporting your overarching brand messages. So being selective with the partners that you work with is important. Having a close relationship with them as well, and that trust element would be the 3 biggest factors that we'd consider when looking at different partners.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I think audience is a big thing. You know, one of the partners I think are great at discounting is Unidays, because they offer such a strong audience. Like, and if you're really trying to target that Gen Z, you know, student market, they're a great way to do that. So if that's, you know, I think understanding the audience you're really trying to target. But I think also, you know, Andrew said this, like measurement as well comes from the trust piece, like actually being able to go, okay, is this driving the value I want? And if it's not, then maybe that's not the partner for you, or you need to try a different approach. But you'll get there eventually. I mean, the best thing you can do with partnerships is speaking directly to your partners, like actually engaging in conversation, working out your goals. So you can do that with discounting partners really effectively as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, guys, that's actually all the time we have today. So I wanted to give our speakers a huge thank you for the time they've taken out to give us these insights and to provide all of this data for our webinar today. As always, it has been fascinating and just absolutely valuable. So I'm sure that our audience will have taken a lot away from it. I hope everyone took notes. So there's lots of stuff to refer to. And of course, if we didn't get a time to answer your questions today, please feel free to reach out to today's speakers. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks to Sarah and Annabelle for their time today. So yeah, just stay safe everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you.